Hello there, beautiful people. I'm Emmy. Welcome to the first episode of Paint Fanfare. This is a new series that I've had on my mind for quite a while, and it's all about the coronavirus. Just kidding. You haven't heard enough about that yet, have you? In this series, I'll be painting fan art while I talk about the movie I'm painting it for. I love movies, and I love talking about movies, and I love creating fan art, so this is gonna work out just fine. This week I wanted to talk to you about Pixar's latest movie, Onward. If you know anything about me at all, you'll know that I absolutely adore Pixar and all of their creations. My reason is simply this: each movie is somehow just as good, if not better, than the last. They always find a way to make you fall in love with their characters, empathize with the plot, and they usually have an ending that pulls at your heartstrings. Or at least mine. I cry every single time I watch a Pixar movie, bar none. Little Monsters Inc. reference for those of you out there paying attention. This week I wanted to talk to you about Onward, but before we go any further, take note that this episode will contain spoilers. Spoilers, y'all. It's happening. A couple weeks ago, Steve and I went to the movie theater to watch this animation, and I have to say, I think this is a perfect movie for me. Throughout my teen years, I was obsessed with fantasy, lore, and Lord of the Rings. I was constantly drawing fairies, unicorns, well, not so much unicorns, but this movie has it all. Everything from elves to centaurs, goblins to makeshift dragons that are built from pieces of a broken apart school. There's adventure, magic, and pixies. On to the plot! So this movie marries fantasy with real life. The whole point of the movie is that there once was magic, and then someone discovered electricity. And soon the populace of this world begins to totally rely on modernization of technology rather than magic. There are light bulbs, cars, microwaves. Gone are the days of using staffs and spells. Intro to Ian Lightfoot, our main character voiced by Tom Holland. Ian's introverted sweetheart who wants nothing more than to be bold. He's accompanied by his big brother Barley, voiced by Chris Pratt, who is the perfect man for the job. Can I just say how much I love that actor? Barley appears to be going through the, and I quote imperfectly, longest gap year ever. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the term, a gap year is the time some youngsters take off after graduating high school to work in the real world before deciding what they want to do for college. For instance, I did a gap year for 6 years after high school. Oops. But I digress. Okay, so the movie opens up on Ian's 16th birthday with a potential for snafus and adventure. We learn pretty quickly that Ian and Barley lost their father due to some sickness or other before Ian was born. Pixar lets you know just how much Ian wishes he'd met his dad by putting an old sweatshirt on that used to belong to his father. His mom, played by Juliette Louis-Dreyfus, points this out during the first scene. And then we meet Barley, who has an apparent love for all things magic. The table is taken up by his board game that really resembles Dungeons and Dragons, complete with wizards made out of metal and like this entire book of lore and magic spells. On his way to school, Ian bumps into a man who recognizes the sweatshirt he's wearing and says that he used to go to college with Ian's dad. He learns from this establishing character that his dad used to be this bold, risk-taking type of man. Ian, who idolizes the idea of his father, sits down on a bench and he writes this adorable little list of goals so that he can be just like his father. Adorable. After a pretty bad day of school filled with being unable to follow through with these goals, like speaking up, making friends, finally taking his driver's test, he comes home to his mom, who sees the struggle and really sympathizes with him. And it's at this point that she reveals the plot of our movie. She says that their dad left this gift for both of them for after they're both 16. She's completely oblivious to what this elongated gift wrapped in burlap could be, which I thought was kind of adorable because, didn't she know this guy? Wasn't she kind of married to him and had kids with him? You'd think she would know what he's into. So they unwrap this gift, and of course it's a staff accompanied by a spell that their father wrote for them so that he could return for one full day to see who his two sons had grown up to be. Okay, but for real, just take a second to think about how sweet that actually is. I would be lying if I said I didn't start crying immediately when that happened. Along with the staff and the spell, they also have what is called a phoenix gem, which apparently you can't do this crazy spell without the phoenix gem, and they're supposedly super rare. So Barley takes the staff and he recites the spell with the phoenix gem, and literally nothing happens. And they do this adorable little montage of him trying to do the spell over and over and over and over before finally, like, everybody in the room is super disappointed and they don't really know what to do. And the mom's kind of like, okay, well, I'm gonna go pick up your cake. So she leaves, Barley leaves the room, and Ian's left with his disappointing list and the staff and the spell. I'm not sure exactly what prompts him to recite it, but he starts to recite the spell and the staff lights up immediately. Curious as to where this is going, he goes ahead and recites the rest of the spell, and he grabs the staff and like things start blowing around in the room and it's obvious magic is happening. Barley comes running in. He sees the form of their dad starting to take shape. It's starting with his feet and it moves up to his legs and it starts to go into his torso when the staff kind of goes crazy and Ian's losing his grip, and so Barley comes to try to help and the gem explodes. Now they are left with the bottom half of their father, which is basically just pants and shoes. But they have this cute little thing where when Barley was a little kid and his dad was still around, he used to come up to him and drum on his shoes. He would go dun da da dun da dun da. So since their father can't hear them because he has no head, Barley does the little rhythm on the shoe, and it's pretty clear that the dad recognizes where he is and what's going on. So now they're presented with the problem of needing to find another phoenix gem, which again is very rare, in order to complete the spell and actually spend time with their dad. Super bummer. So that's kind of the plot of Onward. Barley and his brother set out in this van that he calls Guinevere, that's painted with a unicorn on the side, to find the phoenix gem so that they can restore the full version of their father. Now here come the spoilers. My favorite part of the movie is when Ian and Barley kind of come to this roundabout where they've gone in circles and they still haven't found the gem, and both of them are hugely discouraged. And Ian takes out his list of all the things he wanted to do with his dad when he finally did get to meet him. And he's like crossing all of them off because none of it's gonna happen because they won't have the gem in time to spend any real quality time with their father. And he's like crossing these things off on his list, and all of a sudden he stops and he starts reminiscing on good times that he had with his brother. Because his brother was there for him when he was a little kid. His brother was the one who pretty much raised him like a father. After they find the gem, it awakens a spell that creates this dragon that's trying to get the phoenix gem back and away from them at any means possible. And there's a moment where Ian has to decide whether or not to fight this dragon or meet his father. And he looks at Barley and he tells him that he deserves it more than Ian does, because Barley was the one who got to actually know his father before he died. And then he spent his young life, his childhood, pretty much raising his little brother. And Ian's like, no man, you deserve this. You need this more than I do. And he gives up his chance of seeing his dad so that his brother can do it. And the beautiful thing about that moment is that Ian defeats the dragon. He's kind of trapped in this rubble and he can't get to Barley and his father. But he can see them through this little hole, and he sees the two of them talking. He can't hear anything, and from the perspective of the audience, you can't hear anything that's going on either. But you get to see Barley reunited with his dad. And then they share this sweet hug, and it's just a beautiful moment of reuniting. And it breaks my heart, because seeing two people be able to share a childhood together and to grow up together, and knowing that strong bond that siblings create with one another. Pixar, you did it again, you sly bastards. I really enjoyed the movie. I give it 4 out of 5 paintbrushes. Well deserved. It's a tearjerker if you have a heart, but that's neither here nor there. Put it on O for Onward. So adorable. But I highly recommend that you watch it, especially during this time where we're all kind of quarantined, or at least isolated. I know Onward is now available on digital copy, so I highly recommend that while you have nothing to do this week or maybe next week, or even if you do happen to be an essential personnel who's working, spend your weekend buying this movie and watching it, because it is something that is enjoyable for all ages. I promise. Well, I think that's it for this week. Thank you for watching this very first episode of Paint Fanfare. Don't forget to click that like and subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications every week when I put out new videos. Until next time, stay creative.